All right, Bulls and Bears, I got shook up today by an earthquake, but I'm back with another dose of economic reality. Yeah, we'll start off with this. We had a 5.3 scale earthquake today. The epicenter was San Diego, 5.2 actually. And it was very interesting. I was sitting, typing up some stuff and for work, and I felt my desk shaking. And first I thought it was like somebody next door with like a power tool or something, shaking the ground like, one of those cement breakers. And then it got worse and it lasted for like 20 seconds. And I felt the house kind of shift and shake and shimmer. So it wasn't crazy. And actually, somebody in my house even slept through it. So it wasn't like a ridiculous amount of shaking, but it was kind of concerning. If that would have went on for another like 30 or 40 seconds, like 1 minute of that type of shaking, I think some things would have fell apart in this house. I think the house might have even not made it through because that's how severe it was. It was only like 20 seconds if I can remember correctly. So to those that reached out and emailed and stuff like that, I'm fine. I really didn't see much damage on the news reports. I saw some liquor stores had some bottles hit the ground and things like that, but nothing crazy, no deaths, nobody injured that I'm aware of as of this reporting. In fact, even the animals at the zoo, let me move this microphone, were protecting their little ones. Elephants at the San Diego Zoo huddle to protect calves during earthquake. So pretty interesting. Is this got video? AP put that out, so they're even talking about this stuff over in Europe. AP. And Californians in general should feel pretty lucky that this wasn't worse because insurance rates are already outrageous. In fact, most people don't carry earthquake insurance because of the cost of insurance in California for your home. It's already so outrageous, but it's a very small percentage that do carry it because of the cost mainly. Some people don't even know that earthquakes are separate coverage on your home insurance. It's optional, kind of like flood insurance. Flood insurance is optional because you don't need flood insurance in some parts of the country. So same thing with earthquakes. So they make it optional, and it could be quite costly. But look at this here. Only 10 or 12% of people in California even carry earthquake coverage. So people have these $1 million homes out here, and I didn't pay that much for mine because I bought in 2010. But some people have homes that they have loans against or own completely, $1 million homes, but not even covering them for the worst type of damage that could happen, which is an earthquake. Well, it's not the worst, obviously, because earthquakes can be small and a fire can burn down your house, but it can be pretty damaging. Luckily, again, today it was only like 20 seconds from where I felt it here in the kind of the La Mesa, East County part of San Diego. And I had to look and see where the epicenter was. It just says San Diego here. And I figure I might as well give you more details on it here since I actually felt the shake. This was about 10 o'clock this morning Pacific time. The epicenter was 2.4 miles from Julian, which is about 40 miles north of here, kind of up in the mountains. According to USGS maps, the quake was felt widely across Southern California and even down into Mexico. Seismologist Lucy Jones said this earthquake is likely associated with the Elsinore Fault, which is a branch of the larger San Andreas Fault system. And she said the depth of the quake was about 8 miles below the surface of the earth. So there you go. And looking at this map here, you could see this is Southern California. Here's the border down here with Mexico. So we're San Diego. We're down here. And if you're watching my cursor, this was felt all the way up past Los Angeles, up into the valley, and even up into Lancaster. They felt it very, very far. Santa Barbara, and even up into Bakersfield. So this one was felt widely around Southern California area. All right, so again, I appreciate all of you that reached out. We're going to get into the financial economic news as always. Ton to get caught up on because I didn't get a report out yesterday. I apologize. And then today we got set back a little bit with the earthquake and some other stuff going on here. I should say, though, I've been out here a little over 20 years now since I moved out from Michigan. Only felt probably that's my fourth earthquake that I've ever felt, right? So not too bad for those of you that think it's insane to live in California. Really, you don't feel them that often. You go 3 or 4 or 5 years and barely even feel a tremor. And so it's not too crazy. I mean, there's other things about California, but the earthquake part of it's probably one of my least concerns right now. It's the cost of living, it's the homelessness problem, the filth. We've got sewage coming up from Mexico. We should talk about that next here. Some of the beaches here are actually closed down in the southern part of California. What's the name of it? Imperial Beach. I apologize. Imperial Beach. San Diego beaches, particularly in the South Bay, have been facing persistent sewage contamination, leading to numerous beach closures and public health concerns. Even some of the Marines, I believe it was up in Camp Pendleton, got sick because they had to swim in the water, and they got sick from the sewage. So my thing here that I've talked about is if we're going to send countries money, we're going to send foreign countries money, why not send it to Mexico to clean up the sewage that's coming up from the southern area? And maybe we'd actually see some benefit out of the money that we send, but we're sending money to lots of other countries that will really never see the benefit from it. So if we did send out money, and I don't think we should, but if we did, at least that would be one thing. But then you'd have to put contingencies on it saying, hey, you have to fix your sewage problem. Otherwise, you're going to, who knows, stop sending money or worse, sanctions. Speaking of sanctions and tariffs, there are both of those happening right now, as most of you know, sanctions and tariffs. And in fact, speaking of sanctions, it just came out here recently. It just came out that there may be some federal involvement here. California supervisor slams Mexico over imminent dump of sewage water. It's time for federal action. All right, people, but let's get into the other news. And I've been out of the markets, as I've told you. I've dipped my toe in here and there, but there's just too much uncertainty right now, too much volatility for me to want to get back into these markets at this moment. I still have some stocks that I've held for years. There's staples that are going to be around for a long time. Walmart, I don't think Walmart's going to go anywhere. Even Home Depot stock. I even have McDonald's. I have Starbucks. Companies that I feel like they're always going to be around. And if the prices crash, I'll go in and buy more. But I'm not adding to any of my positions right now. And in fact, I'm still very low as far as the amount of stocks that I'm holding. I still have my 401k, which is doing pretty good since I'm in a money market type of thing. But even bonds are very risky right now. There's really not any safe place. That's why you're seeing this huge flight to gold right now. Let's touch on that for just a quick sec here. As I'm reading this here today, gold, $3,229. So we can see people are continuing to pile into gold, not just people, but companies and central banks and governments. Even at a federal level, countries are scooping up gold. But this whole on again, off again, red light, green light type of thing with the tariffs has gotten too out of control, in my opinion. So I'm being very careful. I'm not going to jump into these markets. So much volatility. And if you know by watching history, volatility typically comes before major economic downturns. And will an economic downturn happen in conjunction with a market crash? Or will they keep markets propped up even though most of the population is going to suffer under massive job losses and evictions and maybe even losing their home? So we'll have to see how it goes. We got some real estate news to catch up on here later in this report, but just came out here. Look at this. New tariffs threatened now on smartphones just days after exempting them. This is the current administration doing this. So you see what I mean? On and off again, over and back again. I mean, days after exempting them. And what's happening right now with the tariffs, folks? I mean, China tariffs now are up to 145%. And we get so many things from China that you have to wonder how the U.S. consumer is going to handle this if these aren't taken off again. And who knows, they could get taken off. My point is that without any definite path forward, without seeing where the road is going to lead, maybe tariffs will be here, maybe they won't. Without knowing, though, do you want to be really heavily invested in the markets right now with all this uncertainty? I'm certainly not. I'm in the markets a little bit. I'll still look for investment opportunities, maybe places to short stocks, maybe places to put a put option out there, but definitely being very cautious right now. Now, interesting though, I've heard some people say and comment that, oh, you need to leave politics out of this. How can you leave politics out of this when the president comes out and says one word and the markets either shoot up or start crashing based on what's happening with the tariffs that are announced and seemingly new ones every day? I mean, how do you separate this from politics when that's the main driver of the markets right now? And actually, if you look at the big picture, I mean, if you want to count the central bank in here as politicians, I mean, it's all driven by politicians right now. Of course, there's still some market forces out there, buyers and sellers, but the amount of buyers is increased by the amount of money that's loaned out. So that's another thing that's still controlled by the policymakers, right? All of this is controlled by the policymakers. Yes, there's still buyers and sellers, consumers, but their ability to borrow money and spend money is based on policy. It's based on interest rates. It's based on banking regulations or deregulations, whichever way you want to look at it, right? So let's move on here to some other news, folks. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio, quote, "I'm worried about something worse than a recession." So what's he talking about? That's been in the news. CNBC's reporting this. I'll just give you a couple snippets out of here. And he's worried about the bond market. He goes on to say, I'll let you decide for yourself here what you think. Quote, "Right now, we're at a decision-making point and very close to a recession." He said, "I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well." He's talking about the tariffs and the volatility and the uncertainty. This billionaire said he's more concerned about trade disruptions, mounting U.S. debt. Well, it's 37 trillion about. So how much is 40 trillion going to matter? Is 45 trillion going to matter at this point? And emerging world powers bringing down the international economic and geopolitical structure that has been in place since the end of World War II. So some people are frightened of the change that's happening right now. They say nothing but bad stuff can happen out of this. Other people say the system is broken. We have most people living paycheck to paycheck. We have homelessness exploding. We have debts and deficits exploding, right? And it's not sustainable is what some people say. So something has to change. So a lot of people look at what's happening right now as a positive thing. They look at this as a shakeup in the current financial system, current financial structure. And some people say that's a good thing because change had to happen, but not all change is good change, right? So there's two sides of that coin right there, two sides of that view. But back to Ray Dalio, he continues in the full excerpt and interviews over there at CNBC. He continues, quote, "We're going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which there's great conflict." Or I would argue that there's already great conflict. All right, and he goes on to say the tariffs have an understandable goal, which was supposed to be bringing jobs back. He continues, but they're being implemented in a very disruptive way that creates global conflict. A 90-day pause on these reciprocal tariffs, but he did stand firm, talking about the current administration, stood firm on the 10% baseline with the 145% tariffs on China still staying in effect. Oh, and I should give an update here. Avocados are back on the shelves at my favorite store. They were gone one day. I thought it was tariff related. Turns out they're still there for about the same price. So I haven't really seen too much of an impact here in California. One thing that's kind of shocking here in California is still the gas price is still up, averaging about $5 a gallon. If you get the lowest grade of gas, you can find it for $4.50, $4.60 a gallon, talking about $4.50 a gallon. And even with the lower oil prices, we're not seeing much relief here in California. So besides getting shook up with the earthquakes, you got high gas prices and lots of other things to contend and deal with here in California. And people are growing even more concerned. Every time we look at a survey, consumers are more and more stressed out and concerned about the direction that this country is headed. There was just another survey, the central bank's monthly survey of consumer expectations. It showed that respondents saw inflation a year from now being still higher and in fact accelerating to 3.6%. And that's an increase of half of a percentage point up from the February expectation and the highest reading since October 2023. And the consumer sentiment continued to drop. And this is the worst since 2020 with the onset of the health crisis as far as the biggest decline or drop in the consumer sentiment from this particular survey. All right, and this also included the probability of unemployment rate being higher a year from now. That surged up to 44% of respondents expect it to be higher, and that's up 4.6 percentage points in the highest level since April 2020, so 5 years ago. All right, folks, we're going to dip into real estate now. We're seeing home sales still in the gutter, basically the biggest slump since about 40 years ago. And the realtor optimism right now is so low. There's even articles out there like this: panic as home buyers bail in droves, as realtors reveal how they're waiting for a crash as big as 2008. And this is how they worded this headline over at the Mail: waiting for a crash as big as 2008. I don't think that realtors think the housing market's going to crash. For that to happen, you'd have to pull away all the funding that allows people to buy homes, and I don't think they're going to let that happen right now. I think the banks are going to continue to keep a loose monetary lending policy in place right now. And it goes on here: the housing market is struggling as panicked buyers back out of deals amid widespread uncertainty. So that's the thing. Even the low volume of sales is dropping even more because of the new uncertainty, which has really been going on for a few months. But the unending uncertainty, as it seems, is continuing. One home buyer in Florida tells the Mail that they're not optimistic about where the U.S. housing market is headed, but he does have a plan to wait for a market crash to buy. There's a lot of people out there waiting for a market crash. Sometimes it feels like it's never going to get here because the things that made home prices get so high and led home prices to where they're at now are still being done. We still have a lot of big money investors, a lot of billionaires and multi-billionaire corporations, corporate America buying homes. But this continues, quote, "I'm waiting on the market to cycle as it did in 2008. Remember, 2008, banks didn't know if they were going to survive. But ever since then, they've been given a basically guaranteed life support, right? We've seen too big to fail. We've seen the banks now given this optimistic view that they're never going to be allowed to go under or to fail. Or if they do fail, it's going to be a smaller regional bank that'll just get bought up by a bigger bank." But this article continues: "This is a perfect storm for an eventual market crash due to this affordability crisis. I will be one of the smart ones waiting on the sidelines to buy at the right time, not at the top of the market." But people have been saying that for years. People thought it was the top of the market in 2017 when home prices got to where they were before the 2008 crash. Then 2020 happened and people said, okay, the market's going down. They came in with helicopter money to infinity, stimulus checks, freezing foreclosures. Prices continue to go up because of all the intervention and not allowing the markets to function as they really should function. There shouldn't be all this intervention and there shouldn't be all these rescue programs. And remember, the rescue programs are only available because of the money system right now, the system of money, which is basically create trillions of dollars at the click of a mouse. And there's no limitations on the amount of money that can be thrown into the problem. Hence the term helicopter money, where they can just drop money onto the problem, which is basically fuel in the fire, adding more fuel to the fire. That just makes the problem worse and unaffordability worse. And the volume, again, is so low in the housing market. I've got a chart here out of Fast Company. And if you look here, and you can see the year down here, where we're at right now is the lowest that we've seen since about the early 1990s, right? So over a 40-year low. This is even lower than we saw during the depths of the housing bubble bust. Look right here, 2008, 9, and 10. We're lower in sales right now than we were even back then. With all the uncertainty back then in the housing market, we're lower now, lower number of sales now than we were back then. All right, and I should say this is adjusted based on population size because, of course, population was a lot lower back then, but compared to the number of available buyers and the number of transactions, it's lower now than what it was back then. So that should be definitely an eye-opener as to the unaffordability right now in the housing market. Does it mean prices are going to crash? No, because we still have companies out there buying homes for cash. Investors, 1 and 2 homes here in California are bought by an investor. In other words, about 50% of the people here in California are renting, which maybe it's a good thing if you don't own a home, because if a earthquake damage hits your home, if you have earthquake damage and only 10 or 15% have earthquake coverage, might be better off being a renter. Would you rather be a renter if your house falls apart from an earthquake? Would you rather be renting the home or owning the home? Right? So in some cases, it's good to be a renter, but it's all a gamble, folks. Roll the dice, pull the slot machine lever down. A lot of it's just luck and gambling, folks, as far as success or failure. But you certainly can do things to put the odds more in your favor. Let's wrap it up here with a couple eviction stories, folks. We know that evictions are at all-time highs now in many areas, and hundreds of different cities are seeing big record spikes in evictions. Here's just a recent story here. Gunman in Lebanon, this I believe Ohio, unalived himself as he was about ready to be evicted. I'm sorry, Pennsylvania, Lebanon, Pennsylvania. A Lebanon man about to be evicted from his apartment walked into the neighbor's unit, firing through the window and wounding the man, and then walked back to his own apartment. And I'll let you read the rest of it, so folks. So a lot of stories out there like that, folks. Stressful time for a lot of people. Other people, they don't even care. They're not paying attention. So is it better to not even pay attention? Maybe it'll be less stressful. But we pay attention, keeping an eye on the markets, keeping an eye on the economy and the whole system of things financially. So hope this helps, folks. Let me know what you think about all this down in comments. And thanks for reaching out again about the earthquake. I'm fine. Hope everything around your neck of the woods is fine as well. And we'll be back for another update. Please make sure you subscribe. Hit that button right down here for me. Please keep this channel alive. Thank you very much, everybody. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.